You are standing in your kitchen, waiting for the toaster to pop. It is a Tuesday. You are staring at a smudge on the counter, thinking about a text you sent 3 hours ago that still hasn't been answered. You feel a familiar, dull ache of anxiety in your chest. In your pocket, a piece of glass and silicon contains the potential to connect you with 5,000 people within a 10-mile radius. You have more options for a partner than a medieval king or a Roman emperor ever dreamed of. And yet, here is the paradox. You are statistically more likely to feel lonely, rejected, and sexually frustrated than a person living 40,000 years ago who only ever met 80 people in their entire life. You think you are looking for love in a high-tech world, but you are actually trying to run a piece of software designed for the Stone Age on a machine that's overheating. To understand why your heart hurts today, you have to understand that for 99% of human history, finding a mate wasn't about a vibe or a swipe. It was a high-stakes, biological chess match where the loser didn't just get ghosted. They stopped existing entirely. The past is a graveyard of myths we tell ourselves to feel better about the present. You've probably seen the classic image in your head when you think of ancient romance. A hulking, bearded man drags a passive woman into a cave by her hair. We've been fed this narrative for a century. It suggests that ancient love was built on male dominance and female submission. But modern science has walked into that cave and found something completely different. In 2020, archaeologist Randy Haas and his team discovered a 9,000-year-old burial in the Andes Mountains of Peru. The body was surrounded by a sophisticated toolkit of stone projectiles and big game hunting gear. For decades, researchers would have looked at those bones and assumed it was a man. They were wrong. High-tech protein analysis of the tooth enamel proved the hunter was a biological female. Even more shocking, Haas's team looked at other burials across the Americas and found that up to 50% of big game hunters in the late Pleistocene were likely women. This shatters the man the hunter, woman the gatherer myth. Ancient love wasn't a transaction where a provider bought a dependent. It was a partnership between two apex predators. If you were looking for a mate 30,000 years ago, you weren't looking for someone to protect you while you sat around. You were looking for a tactical partner who could track a wounded elk through a blizzard for 3 days without complaining. The damsel in distress is a modern invention. In the deep past, if you were a burden, you were a liability to the gene pool. Survival was the ultimate aphrodisiac, and competence was the only currency that mattered. A pretty face was a luxury that vanished the moment the sun went down. When you do meet someone today, you talk. You ask about their favorite movies or where they went to college. But your ancestors were doing something much more sophisticated and much grosser. They were smelling each other's immune systems. In 1995, a Swiss biological researcher named Klaus Wedekind conducted what is now famously known as the sweaty t-shirt study. He had a group of men wear the same plain t-shirts for 2 nights until they were saturated with their natural scent. Then he asked women to sniff the shirts and rank them based on attractiveness. The results were staggering and have been replicated many times since. The women consistently preferred the scent of men whose major histocompatibility complex, or MHC, was the most different from their own. The MHC is a set of genes that controls your immune system. By picking a partner with a different MHC, ancient humans were ensuring that their children would have a broader, more robust immune defense against a wider variety of parasites and diseases. Your nose is actually a highly calibrated biological sensor designed to prevent inbreeding and maximize the survival of your offspring. When you feel chemistry with someone today, you think it's a soul connection. It isn't. It is your ancient brain recognizing that this person's white blood cells complement yours. You are literally smelling the health of their future children before they've even said hello. The most romantic thing about our ancestors wasn't their hearts, it was their nostrils. But how did they actually meet people if they lived in tiny groups of 30 people? If you only know 20 people and half of them are your siblings, your dating pool is essentially a puddle. For a long time, we thought ancient humans were isolated and primitive, but the archaeology of sites like Sungir in Russia tells a different story. Sungir is about 34,000 years old. When researchers excavated the burials there, they found something mind-blowing. The individuals were draped in thousands of hand-carved ivory beads. To make just one of these beads took about 45 minutes of intense labor. One man was buried with over 3,000 of them. This wasn't just jewelry. This was a signal. It meant that these primitive people were part of massive, regional social networks. They weren't wandering aimlessly. They were traveling hundreds of miles to attend massive, seasonal megagatherings. Think of it as a Stone Age festival that happened once or twice a year. Hundreds of people from different bands would descend on a single location to trade stone tools, share stories, and, most importantly, find a mate who wasn't their cousin. These megasites were the original Tinder. You didn't just stumble into love. You hiked for 3 weeks across a tundra to reach a specific valley because you knew that's where the other tribes would be. You had to show up with gifts, with stories, and with proof of your status. The beads on your clothes told everyone exactly how much your home tribe valued you. If you were wearing 3,000 beads, you were a high-value match. If you showed up in rags, you were going home alone. Love wasn't a feeling you found, it was a destination you marched toward. Once our ancestors found a potential match at these festivals, the real games began. Biologists call this costly signaling. It's based on the handicap principle, a theory developed by Amatz Zahavi. The idea is simple. To prove you are high quality, you must perform a task that is so difficult or wasteful that a low-quality individual couldn't possibly fake it. Think of a peacock's tail. It makes the bird easy for predators to see and hard for it to fly. It's a handicap. But that's the point. If the peacock can survive while carrying that massive, heavy tail, he must have incredible genes. Ancient humans did the same thing. A man didn't just say he was a good provider. He walked into the center of the camp with the skin of a cave lion or the tusks of a mammoth. He was showing that he had so much excess energy and skill that he could risk his life on a hunt that wasn't even strictly necessary for calories. Women did the same by demonstrating elite social intelligence and craft. Making a waterproof parka out of caribou hide isn't just about warmth, it's a display of cognitive complexity and patience. These weren't just chores. They were public demonstrations of genetic fitness. You couldn't lie about your value because your value was draped over your shoulders for everyone to see. In the ancient world, you didn't have to wonder if someone was the one. You could see their resume written in the scars on their hands and the trophies in their pack. Trust was earned in blood long before it was expressed in whispers. When a pair finally did bond, nature didn't leave the rest to chance. It used a chemical hammer to forge a connection that could withstand the brutality of the Ice Age. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist, has spent decades putting people in love into fMRI machines to see what's happening in their brains. What she found is that romantic love isn't an emotion like happiness or sadness. It is a drive. It's as powerful as hunger or thirst. When you fall for someone, your brain's reward system, specifically the ventral tegmental area, floods with dopamine. This is the same part of the brain that reacts to cocaine. It creates an intense, obsessive focus on a single person. In the wild, a human infant is the most helpless creature on Earth. It takes years of constant care just to keep a baby alive. If ancient humans just had sex and moved on, their offspring would die. So, evolution developed a secondary system, oxytocin and vasopressin. These are the attachment chemicals. They aren't about the fire of the first date, they are about the slow burn of the next 5 years. They create a feeling of calm and security. This chemical cocktail was designed to keep a man and a woman together just long enough to raise a child through their most vulnerable years. Our ancestors didn't stay together because they shared a hobby. They stayed together because their nervous systems were literally addicted to each other. Love was an evolutionary survival strategy disguised as a feeling. The heart is just a muscle that follows the orders of a very old pharmacy. This brings us to the most uncomfortable part of the story. If our ancestors were so good at this, why are we so bad at it? This is what scientists call evolutionary mismatch. Your brain is designed for a world of scarcity, but you live in a world of infinite, digital abundance. For 99% of our history, the number of potential mates you could choose from was incredibly small. This sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually how the human brain functions best. Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar famously calculated that humans are hardwired to maintain a social circle of about 150 people. This is Dunbar's number. In a group of that size, everyone knows everyone. Reputation is everything. If you treat a partner poorly, the whole tribe knows by morning. There is massive social pressure to be a good mate because you have nowhere else to go. But today, you have access to a digital catalog of millions. When you open a dating app, you are bypassing your biological gatekeeper. Your ancient brain sees 500 faces in an hour and it short-circuits. It enters a state of choice paralysis. Because there is always another person just one swipe away, your brain never triggers the addiction phase of bonding. You stay in the dopamine-seeking phase, always looking for the next hit, never moving into the oxytocin-driven attachment phase. We have uncoupled the reward from the effort. In the Stone Age, you had to work for months to even get a chance to speak to a high-value mate. Today, you get the dopamine hit of a match without ever leaving your couch. You are tricking your brain into thinking it's winning the mating game while your actual life remains empty. We are starving at a feast because our mouths have forgotten how to chew. There is another layer to this mismatch that is even more subtle and more damaging. It's the death of the tribe. In the ancient world, you didn't choose a partner alone. You had a council of elders, siblings, and friends who had known you since birth. They provided a vetting system that was impossible to cheat. They knew if the person you liked was a hard worker or a liar. They knew if their family was reliable. Today, we date in total isolation. We meet strangers in bars or through screens, and we have to do all the vetting ourselves. We have lost the collective intelligence of the group. We are trying to make the most important decision of our lives with less information than our ancestors had when they were choosing which berry to eat. This is why modern dating feels like a minefield. You are trying to navigate a landscape of fake signals. In the Pleistocene, you couldn't fake being a great hunter. You either had the meat or you didn't. Today, you can fake status with a leased car, a filtered photo, or a carefully curated social media profile. We have created a world where the signals of value are incredibly easy to forge, but the reality of value is harder to find than ever. Your brain is screaming for a cave lion's tooth, but all it's getting is a digital like. The machinery of your soul was built for a world that no longer exists. Let's look at the biggest reveal of all. We often think of finding love as the goal of the human experience. We think it's about finding our other half, or someone who completes us. But if you look at the cold, hard data of our evolutionary history, that's not what love was for. Love was a mechanism to ensure that your DNA survived a cold winter. It was a biological insurance policy. The wow fact that most people refuse to accept is that humans are not naturally, happily ever after creatures. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Hadza in Tanzania, show that serial monogamy was the likely norm for our ancestors. They stayed together for a few years, raised a child past the point of weaning, and then often moved on to new partners to increase the genetic diversity of their offspring. The idea of a single, lifelong soulmate is a very recent cultural layer placed on top of a much older, much more fluid biological drive. We are currently trying to force ourselves into a mold of permanent, romantic bliss that our chemistry wasn't really built to sustain indefinitely. This is why the spark fades. It's not because you did something wrong. It's because the dopamine was meant to fade so the oxytocin could take over. And if the oxytocin doesn't have a stable tribe and a shared mission to bond it to, it evaporates. We are hunting for eternity in a body that was built for the season. So, where does that leave you staring at that smudge on your kitchen counter? It leaves you with a choice. You can keep playing the digital lottery, letting an algorithm exploit your prehistoric desire for variety and novelty. Or, you can start listening to the older parts of your brain. The parts that want competence, not just vibes. The parts that want to see how someone handles a crisis, not just how they look in a selfie. The ancient secret to finding love wasn't about being picked. It was about being useful. It was about building a life that was so stable and so valuable that other people wanted to tether their survival to yours. We have spent the last 20 years trying to make dating easier, faster, and more convenient. But convenience is the enemy of attachment. Attachment is forged in the heat of shared struggle. It is built through time, through physical presence, and through the slow, boring work of proving your character. You cannot download a bond that was designed to be written in the dirt. The tribe is gone, but the requirements for entry haven't changed. Think back to those Sungir burials. Those thousands of beads weren't just for show. They were a testament to thousands of hours of focused, dedicated effort. They were a message to the world that said, I am a person who finishes what I start. I am a person who contributes to the whole. I am a person who can be trusted when the wolves are at the door. That is the wow fact you need to take away from this. The most attractive thing you can be in 2024 is exactly what was most attractive in 30,000 BC. A person of high social and functional utility. Someone who can be counted on. Someone who shows up. Someone who doesn't just swipe but actually builds. Our ancestors didn't find love by looking for it. They found love by becoming the kind of person that love couldn't afford to ignore. They found it by being the hunter, the maker, and the protector. They found it because their lives depended on it. Your life might not depend on your partner's ability to hunt a mammoth anymore, but your mental health, your legacy, and your sense of meaning still do. The game hasn't changed. Only the screen has. Your ancestors would look at your phone and see a cage, not a tool. They would see a device that lets you escape the very friction that is supposed to create the fire in your heart. They would see you avoiding the awkwardness, the risk, and the effort that they had to endure just to survive another night. They would tell you that if you want a love that lasts through the winter, you have to stop looking for the easy match and start looking for the strong one. You have to stop being a consumer of people and start being a creator of value. You have to be the person who brings the ivory beads to the festival, not the person who just stands on the sidelines hoping someone notices them. The scent of a compatible immune system is still there, hidden under your expensive cologne. The drive to bond is still there, buried under your notifications. The ancient world is still inside you, pulsing in your blood every time your heart skips a beat. You are the descendant of the most successful lovers in the history of the world. You carry the DNA of people who survived ice ages, plagues, and predators to find each other in the dark. You are built for this. But you have to play by the real rules, not the digital ones. Nature is a brutal teacher, and she doesn't grade on a curve. If you found this deep dive into our biological roots valuable, if it made you look at your own relationships or your own loneliness through a different lens, then join us for more of these rabbit holes. We don't do hacks or quick tips here. We look at the long-form evidence of who we are and where we came from. There is a specific kind of clarity that comes from looking 30,000 years into the past to see your own reflection. What is one modern dating habit you think your ancestors would find the most confusing? Is it the ghosting? The apps? The filters? Tell us in the comments. We actually read them, and it helps us decide which mystery to investigate next. Subscribe if you want to keep your ancient hardware updated for this modern world. It's a quiet way to signal that you're looking for something a bit more substantial than a swipe. You are currently participating in the largest biological experiment in the history of the human race. You are part of the first generation to ever try and find a mate without the guardrails of the tribe, the nose, or the hunt. We are all guessing, and we are all struggling to make sense of a world that feels increasingly artificial. But remember that kitchen counter. Remember that smudge. Remember the toaster. You are not just a user of an app. You are a biological miracle, the end result of 1,000,000 years of perfect choices. Do not let a piece of glass convince you that you are worth less than your ancestors were. They fought through the snow for a single look from the right person. You have that same fire in you. You just have to be brave enough to step out of the digital cave and back into the light of the real world. Your ancestors walked 1,000 miles through the frozen dark just to find a hand to hold. You have 5,000 options in your pocket, and yet you are the one who is starving. The apps didn't break dating. They just revealed that you've forgotten how to bleed for what you want. In the ancient world, the weak were forgotten and the cowards died alone. Today, the screen just lets you pretend that neither of those things is happening. But the dirt doesn't care about your profile. The genes don't care about your filters. And the winter is still coming. Land like a gavel. Finality. Modern love is a luxury you can't afford if you've forgotten how to survive.